What is up, everybody? It is Ak here, back with another video, and in today's video we are talking about TBC. It is official, guys. We know for a fact that we are getting TBC with BlizzConline last week. As we anticipated, TBC is going to be coming out. They told us a lot of information. There was some stuff that they kind of hinted at or made us, kind of speculate about whether or not it's going to happen. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to put together a video. First, we're going to summarize what they did say really quick. And then we're going to talk about what might happen as well. Speculate a little bit on that, and then end up talking about how we can prep now that we have some given information to get as ready as possible for TBC, farming, raiding, all that kind of jazz. Let's jump into it. Before we get started with all that though, I want to go and let you guys know about this time walking event that's going on right now. So I got a lot of questions about this in my stream yesterday because we went and we killed Illidan, we did Black Temple, and people were like, are you on the beta? How are you getting access to this as a private server, etc. So this is actually live retail. If you have an active World of Warcraft subscription, and I think at least TBC, you can go in and go and kill Illidan again. You go through the entire Black Temple, and if you've already gotten Warglaives to drop, you need to have the achievement for the Warglaives in the first place. You'll actually get the transmog, so you can use it on Demon Hunter. So if you guys are interested in going into Black Temple, definitely recommend it. Again, you'd have to have the active World of Warcraft subscription, but then if you log into retail, you should be able to do this. You can go to looking for group, find a group that's going to do it, queue up with them, and go in. You queue in Shatrath at the top of the little ring in the middle. There's a panda guy. Tons of people will be stacked up on him. It's a lot of fun. They say that it's tuned to normal. Basically, they scale down your level, scale down your gear, and they say that it's tuned to a normal level raid. I would say that's semi-accurate. I think it's probably a little bit easier than that, but we were definitely wiping a good amount of time, so we had to actually figure out some strategies for some bosses. So it was a lot of fun, and we were able to kill Illidan. It took a couple hours. Definitely recommend checking this out if you guys want to get into some TBC action right now. All right, let's jump into it. So they announced a lot of information, and they answered a lot of questions. And I'm actually really appreciative that they did, because they were pretty forthcoming, to be honest, and they hinted at certain things. And so I'm going to make some speculations as we go through these, but let's start off with the cold hard facts. So the release date is unknown. They did say that, it's going to come in 2021, right? So somebody trolled me and said it's going to be December of 2021, which would suck. But anyways, it's going to be in 2021. They also said that the beta was going to be coming out soon. And the way that they were wording it, and they mentioned, the word month a couple times, I would probably expect beta sometime in March or at the latest April. And if we get beta, it'll probably be about, I would say at least a month. No more than probably 2 months though of beta, and so that would probably put a time frame of that May or June release. Not guaranteed, but that's probable. I do think that 9.1 for Shadowlands is coming out in May, so hopefully it won't overlap with each other again, just because that caused a lot of issues back in December. But that's kind of the best date that I'm speculating. So I think that the pre-patch in April and going live in May is not out of the question. Maybe 1 month later, but we'll see on that front. We are not getting fresh servers. I know that a lot of people wanted fresh servers so that they could start off. Nobody would have any advantages or anything like that, but we're not getting fresh servers. The way that it's working is that you have the ability to either transfer your tune to TBC or leave it in Classic. Or if you wanted to, you could also pay to have it copied to both. So how that will work is that you can pay, it's probably going to be like $30, I would imagine, kind of like a normal character transfer. They will take a snapshot of all of your information, your bank, your gold, everything you have on your tune. One tune will get left on the Classic version of the server. One version will get put on the TBC version of the server. Real quick, talking about those servers, basically the way that's going to work is every single server is going to advance to TBC, and there's actually going to be an entirely separate game for Classic. It's going to be called Classic Era, and so what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to download that entirely separate game. Then when you go into Battle.net, just like you do now to log into either Retail or Classic, you will log into Classic or TBC. So it's going to be two separate games, which honestly is probably a really good way to handle it. Now, I don't know if they're going to shadow consolidate a lot of the servers, because if there's not as much focus on Classic, I would be surprised if they left the servers in their state that they are. A lot of them are getting small pops. A lot of them are very unevenly balanced as far as factions. And it's probably just going to cost them a good amount of money to keep open a bunch of servers if there's only, let's say, like 100,000 people who are focusing on Classic, where the rest go to TBC. So I think that they're probably going to do some kind of consolidation for servers. Maybe they put, these 5 servers together onto this new server on Classic, but we'll see. But they're moving the servers forward. There's some key information in that, though, that I think we can kind of speculate on, and they didn't officially say, but I think we basically can say that we know for a fact that there will be no gold cap. Now, the reason why is that if you're able to take a snapshot of all the gold that you have and everything in your bank on one character and then transfer it to both TBC and Classic, that's them basically saying that they're not doing anything about gold. And to be honest, outside of the people, watching all the YouTube channels and the streams and things about farming gold, it kind of makes sense. I mean, you're going to have several people with about 10,000 gold going into TBC. But the population of people that are going to have that, 100,000 plus is probably not that large. I mean, I know Gressel was bought for 122K or whatever, but that's got a whole nother kind of tangent that we can dive into on that. So I think it kind of makes sense. And honestly, like I've been saying in my stream for a while, I think they want to take the laissez-faire approach where they don't tick anybody off, right? Because the worst thing that they could do is make a change that ticks off more people than if they hadn't made any change at all, because then that shows that they thought about it and they made that change. Speaking of making changes, though, they did say that they were going to start focusing a lot more resources on TBC Classic, which is fantastic news, because it basically means that they're going to be putting some effort into it and seeing if there's any changes they do need to make and making those. One of those changes is actually huge, and that's that Paladins on the Alliance will get the equivalent of Seal of the Blood at level 70. So rating on the Horde was far superior in TBC for multiple reasons, but the big one for Paladins is Seal of the Blood. It allows you to do much more damage. And so the fact that the Alliance is also getting their Seal of the Blood, that's huge. That is huge. And that's a great quality of life change. And I think that kind of stems from the fact that the factions are kind of imbalanced in retail right now, and they want to do everything that they can to prevent that in TBC. So that's going to make it a lot more viable to do, the highest tier of rating on Alliance in TBC Classic. So I think that's pretty cool. Next thing that we know is that we're going to get early access to Blood Elf and Draenei. So this is one key thing from the rumors that was coming out, that we were going to get them in pre-patch. It is confirmed that we will get access to Blood Elf and Draenei in pre-patch, which means we will be able to level them to 60 and potentially get them some gear prior to going in to TBC Classic. This is fantastic news in my opinion, because it allows people to just jump into Hellfire and not feel like they're behind when they get started with TBC. Right? You don't want to ever feel behind at a brand new expansion. So I'm very excited about this. I think that this is definitely a good move and going to be pretty good for a lot of people, right? Now, that also means that we have a lot of new questions. First off, does that mean that we're going to be able to gear them up in raids? We don't know yet, but I think a lot of that is predicated upon whether or not the patches change to 2.4.3 or not. So if you guys didn't know, TBC will officially be released on the 2.4.3 framework. 2.4.3 was the last, I believe, patch of TBC, and it just basically takes out some bugs that they don't want, which makes sense. You want to release it with the improvements that you made throughout the time, and they're going to gate content. So they're not going to let content come out early, and that's basically their solution. So they're basically just going to time gate that content, release it with 2.4.3. The pre-patch is 50-50 on whether or not this happens. Some pros to releasing it with 2.4.3 is that all the content's in the game, it's just gated, which means it's a lot easier to kind of manage, all the changes that are supposed to be made for balancing for TBC are already in the game, which means that people would be able to level up their tunes without boosting, because 2.2 is when boosting kind of gets hurt. Now, I'm not saying the boosting's gone. There's going to be ways to work around it and still do boosting, but it's going to be a lot more difficult. So it's not just going to be, real easy to boost up. But I think, honestly, that's probably a good thing. I would much rather all the paladins and shamans respectively going through their starting locations, leveling up on their own, getting that authentic experience with that new character and not just getting it boosted to 60. Additionally, it's going to take a little bit longer to level to 60. You might miss out on that first Nax lockout. Let's just say pre-patch is 2 weeks. But at the same time, that gear is going to be replaced pretty quickly, so it's okay. I personally think that it's an awesome move if we go out with 2.4.3. It will affect boosting. If it doesn't happen, what's going to happen is that we're going to have boosting, and we're going to have GDKPs with massive, massive gold spends, because people are going to level up these shaman, they're going to level up the pallies, and they're going to want to take as much of an advantage into TBC as they can, so they're going to be dropping thousands of gold on each piece of gear. Like, it's going to be absolutely insane, some of the GDKPs that we have, if the pallies and shamans and everything are able to boost up really quickly and get into Nax for multiple weeks. Going to be interesting to see. They also, by mentioning that the TBC pre-patch will be released with the framework of everything as if it was actual release, leads me to believe that it's going to be 2.4.3. But that's speculation, so we'll have to see for that. You will also be allowed a singular 1 to 58 boost. Now, I want to make something very clear with this. This is not free. It will be paid for. So if you want to take advantage of the one boost, there's only one, you can't do it multiple times, you have to probably pay $60. This is more so for people who didn't play in Classic but want to enjoy TBC and don't have the time to go all the way from 1 to 60, which there's plenty of time, guys. We have plenty of time until TBC if you want to get started now. But if anybody doesn't want to do that, they have the ability to do that with this boost. I don't think it's that bad. A lot of people are getting really mad about it because of that, but at the end of the day, it's only one tune. I understand people are nervous about the botting potential of tunes going up, but at the same time, it's probably going to be pretty easy to flag a brand new account that's just sitting there botting herbs and mining after boosting to 60. I'm going to be honest. And so if they're going to make more of a focus to TBC and they're actually going to devote more resources like they say they are, and like they are making changes, obviously, from what we've seen so far, I'd be really, really surprised if that happened. They also did say that we are getting the spell batching fix overall. They didn't mention if we're going to get it in TBC or Classic. We might have to wait till TBC for that. But that is one change that they said they're definitely moving forward with. So from there's some other little things, maybe not so little to some people. Drums are not going to be able to be spammed. So previously, a lot of people are thinking you're going to need to go leather working to spam the drums as much as possible, and you're going to need at least 4 people in every group to have drums. That's not going to be the case. Drums are going to have a cooldown just like Lust or Heroism, which, is good in some rights and bad in some rights. At the end of the day, I think it's good. It allows people more freedom. And so alchemy, tailoring, and chanting, all those are going to be much more desirable. Maybe there's some other changes I might be missing. If I am, let me know down in the comments down below, just so other people know. Overall, though, those were some of the high-level takeaways that I really focused on and took away from everything. Let's talk about implications, though. First off, obviously boosting. A lot of the things that we do are boosting. So I touched on this briefly before. Boosting is going to be fine, guys. There are going to be ways to boost, especially as we get the spell batching, out of there. It's going to make everything a lot easier. We are going to have to change things. We don't know yet if Flame Strike is included, the initial damage of Flame Strike is included in the AoE cap. We'll have to see once we get beta for 2.4.3, but boosting is going to be fine. Boosting, however, will likely not happen in the pre-patch. So we likely will not be able to level up paladins and shamans, which is going to potentially make gear for shamans and paladins very expensive. And so if you have Skull Flame Shield on the Horde, that's probably going to net you some pretty good money. And for shamans, if you have, meal gear with intellect and, maybe spell power or something like that for leveling up gear, also probably going to go for a good amount of money on the auction house. So that's a decent way to make money. But I don't think that we're going to have tons and tons of boosting going on. People will still be able to boost. So there's still going to be some boost, but it's going to be much more difficult and it's going to take more time. AoE implications. you know, kind of going alongside with boosting, the way that it's going to work, guys, and I've touched on this a lot of times before, once we get past patch 2.2, so if we get released with 2.4.3, AoE is going to be changed drastically. There's going to be a capped spell damage for any, you know, kind of direct damage or channeled spell in the game. And so if it's not a ground effect, it's probably going to be nerfed. And it's going to be capped at a certain amount of damage. So imagine if Blizzard could only do 10,000 damage. If we're only hitting 50 mobs, it's doing 200 damage to a mob. If we're hitting 200 damage or 200 mobs, it's doing 50 damage a mob. If we're hitting 500 mobs, well, then we're only doing like 20 damage a mob. And so that makes things like the Mara 200 pool difficult, Mara 500 pool difficult. That's kind of why we're speculating that boosting is going to be a little bit different. Not impossible, definitely different. It's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out for Naxx as well. One of the reasons why I was hoping that it wouldn't be 2.4.3 is that it's kind of going to mess up the balancing for Naxx when everything comes out, because we will have level 70 talent structures. So it's going to play kind of an impact on the last few weeks of Naxx or Amos farming, but it's going to be interesting to see, and it's just something that comes along with part of the course of releasing new things. Gold implications. Now that we're able to take over gold into TBC, that means that gold is going to be at a premium for the rest of Classic. Gold actually has value, right? And so one of the things we could have seen if gold didn't have value going into TBC is massive GDKPs with massive amounts of gold, because it's worthless, right? That's probably not going to happen. We're probably not going to see these massive GDKPs, but we will see big GDKPs for people trying to gear up now that we know that TBC is official. People are also going to be stockpiling gold. We're going to see a lot of fluctuation in auction house prices. However, I would highly recommend stocking up on low-level gems from mining, low-level ores, not as low as like copper, but some of the more difficult ones to get. Maybe tin, maybe mithril, that kind of, or sorry, not tin, iron, maybe mithril, stuff in that kind of range. Think about jewel crafting, the mats needed for jewel crafting. Think about leather working. Think about tailoring and alchemy. Mats for all of those, the more difficult mats to get, are probably going to skyrocket in prices. And you also want to think potentially about things like golden sand for the pots that they're going to make from them that might be useful in TBC. And so you just want to start to think about some of these items that may have more uses than they do now come TBC time, or at least leveling up into TBC time, to figure out whether or not they're going to be lucrative investments. Fastest way to level is probably the last implication. And so here's where it gets real interesting. People are going to be trying to figure out ways to level their pallies and their shamans as quickly as possible. There might be a mini 1 to 60 world record race for pallies, and if for Blood Elf pallies. And if there is, you bet that I'm 100% going to be participating in that. I'm going to be trying to go as fast as possible to 60. Maybe we won't sleep until 60. I don't know. We'll see. No, I'll probably need to sleep. Maybe we'll get like 4 hours of sleep or something like that. But you're probably not going to be able to boost. And so we're going to have to go with some more unconventional methods to level up as quickly as possible. Paladin ZF farming. Certain other kind of solo farms that, you know, we'll have to wait and see what happens with. It's going to be interesting to see. But overall, I'm extremely excited. I think this is fantastic news. We're getting TBC. Many of the changes that they said they were going to make were great. And overall, I think the team actually is going to support TBC Classic in the way that I would hope that they would support the Classic version of the game, because they do realize that it is drawing them a large portion of their player base. A lot of people play for Classic, and a lot of people will play for TBC. I've already had a ton of people reach out to me talking about how this was their, you know, most nostalgic point because they got started with TBC, right? So it's going to be an amazing game. It's going to be a ton of fun. I'm going to be making a ton of videos, a ton of Paladin farms, Mage farms, overall gold farms. You know, I'm going to be working on getting Gladiator back in TBC or in TBC. So tons of PvP videos potentially. If you guys are interested in that, definitely hit that subscribe button, hit that bell notification next to it, and come follow us on Twitch at twitch.tv/Release. I'll catch you guys in the next video.